Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. And today I have once again a very special guest with me. Once again, appearing on my show is Inna Sovsun. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
All right, thank you, thank you. And it is Saturday, March 19th, 7 p.m. in Kyiv, 12 p.m. here in Chicago Central Time, just for context here. And Inna, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you, thank you. So obviously, since it's been about 3 weeks or so since we've talked, the last time you appear to be in possibly a new location since then. So I just wanted to know, just how are you? How are your loved ones? Is everybody safe?
Well, right now I'm actually in the Western Ukraine. So I have been in Kyiv up until very recently. But then they announced a 2-day curfew in Kyiv, and I decided to take a chance and go see my son, who has been in the Western Ukraine and whom I haven't seen for 3 weeks. So I'm actually in the Western Ukraine right now. I will go back in 2 days or something like that. But it was good to see him. It was very good to see him. I missed him greatly, and it was just lovely seeing him. And yeah, this is like a story that impressed me a lot. Like I came in the morning and he hugged me and said like, "Mom, I'm so glad to see you," and so on. And then he said, "Oh, I will tell you a funny story." And I said, "Okay, go on." And he said, "So yesterday we were planning to go for a walk after school because his online classes restarted, and said like we were planning to go for a walk. It took us a while to get ready. We were forgetting things and so on and so on. And then the very second we open the door to go outside, we hear the sirens and we have to go back inside and go to the basement." Can you imagine? Says my son. Like this happened just very second we went outside. And for him, it was a hilarious story. He thought that this is funny. But for me, that was, of course, like I hate Putin so much that my son knows what a siren is, an air raid siren is, and what he needs to do when he's hearing that. Like, luckily, the area where he is safe. There were no major things happening, but they do have the air raid sirens here as well. And yeah, we don't know where he's safe right now. So. But at least I got to see my son and to check if he's doing his math and reading and all.
Right. Well, and I'm glad that you're safe and he's safe, and obviously all of that. It's such a huge thing. Now, last time, if I may ask, you mentioned that your boyfriend was actually fighting with the Ukrainian forces. Is he okay as well?
He is. I don't know where he is though, and like I don't have regular contact with him. So sometimes he would respond. Sometimes he would say like I will not be able to respond a couple of days. So I have to guess what does that mean. That does make me feel very happy. Let's put it this way. But he's okay. Yeah, he's okay. He's every time he's getting online, he texts me and he says like. Well, he doesn't tell me what exactly he's involved in. That is, not allowed. But he is okay, and he worries very much about the global perspective and how the world reacts, and the talks that taking place right now and so on. But I believe we shall go back to that a bit later. But he's fine. My parents are fine. My dad was helping the army at the beginning, but then he switched kind of his attention to helping people evacuate. So that is. More useful right now. So yeah, we are fine. We are better than many other people in Ukraine. So much better.
Right. And and obviously, the last time we talked like this in an interview, and obviously we've emailed back and forth and all that, but was February 28th, which was at pretty much the beginning of the war. And I'm just curious to know, I'm sure my audience is too, just what does your day-to-day life look like at the moment, with that compared to the beginning of the war? Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty. Things, for lack of a better term, seem to have settled in the sense that you've stopped Russian advances. I want to talk about that as well. But what does your day-to-day life look like inside of Kyiv, outside Kyiv?
So the first 10 days of the attack, I was in Kyiv. Then my friends because I was staying with my friends, but then they decided to evacuate because they were not feeling safe enough. So I moved in with some other friends of mine in Kyiv region, well, like close to Kyiv, but not in the city itself. So that was a change for me, but still, like I haven't slept in my bed since the first day of war. I have been at my place, I have been home to take some stuff and so on, but it's still like it didn't feel safe to be home. But my day-to-day life is now completely different compared to what it used to be. And I was thinking a lot about that. Like, it's like my life as it used to be, it's completely gone. Like, and I don't think I will ever get it back, you know. And I'm actually feeling this extreme anger because of this. Like, I was having my life that I built, that I doing things I like, having the house which I was building, and you know, like the habits, my gym, the place where I like to run, my favorite coffee place, all of that. Like, I don't have access to any of that. And this is like small things, but they are, it's extremely annoying that someone just decided to take all of that away from us. And I know it's like nothing compared to people whose houses blew up, but still, like, you just have to realize that even for those people who are relatively safe, it's still like you go to the supermarket in Kiev and half of the shelves are empty. And you're thinking like, okay, like 3 weeks ago, I was very like picky, like, oh, I don't like this kind of bread. I will go to another one because I want this bread and so on. Now you go to the supermarket and you're like, okay, they have bread. That's good. Like, I take that. You go, like, I was recently like in Kiev, I was walking on the street and I saw the bakery, which used to have huge selection of baked goods. And then I walk past and I see the sign on the door, which says like coffee and bread. That's all they're serving right now. Like, no more fancy bakery stuff and so on and so forth. So this is very scary. And I think right now, so our daily life has changed. Like, the city has changed itself. The city of Kiev has changed a lot. It's empty. People hardly go outside, and we have curfews. We switch off the lights in the evening, and you know, so many things have changed. But I think this general feeling right now is because at first, like we spoke the 28th, right? So that was the 4th day of war. The general feeling is this: first of all, we don't do days of the week anymore. Like, we know what day of war it is, but we don't do days of the week. Like, I know that it is Saturday today, but only because I look at my calendar and look at the interviews when, you know, at the calendar of the interviews. But we don't do days of the week anymore. We just know the day, you know, the day of the war, what day of the war we're in. And second big change is that I think at first we were having this feeling, okay, we just have to kick them out of our country. And like, I will see my son in 3 weeks, he will come back and he will go back to school. Now we have come to this terrifying realization that it can last much longer than we want. It can take so much longer. And this is extremely scary. And now we are also thinking about the potential, like, long-term consequences. Even if we finish this war within a week or a month or even 2, like, we shall have economic consequences for years to come. Like our economic development. So again, we can talk about this later, but I think like this is the feeling that we are having. It's very heavy on our shoulders. It's not just the losses of lives that we are seeing, the destruction of infrastructure, but also we're coming to realize that this is so long-term, like extremely long-term. Like, our lives as we knew that, the prosperity that we were building, it's all gone, like all gone.
Right. And I mean, and to that point, this has gone on longer, I think, than either side had predicted. You know, the original predictions were, oh, well, the Russians are going to come in a few days, take this, and we're going to see an insurgency, you know, that your people are going to go through. But that really just hasn't been the case. I mean, the world has been watching the Ukrainian defense forces hold out and even push back in some aspects the Russian invasion. And as of yesterday, your forces claim to have killed almost 15,000 Russian soldiers, destroyed a lot of their heavy equipment like tanks, personnel carriers, helicopters, all of that. So, I mean, you're a member of parliament. How are the spirit of your defense forces with this reality that, you know, we are holding them back, and you know, but at the same token, they have been pretty relentless.
So I think the first few days of the war, we were all in shock. Like, you have to realize that the war started, the first like explosions of a city were 4:30 in the morning. Then 7:30, we had our emergency session. Then we were like hanging around the parliament trying to figure out what to do next. And then by lunchtime, so less than 12 hours after the first explosions around Kiev, we heard that the Russians have landed in Hostomel, which is 70 kilometers, which is like 45 miles north of Kiev. So you can imagine this shock, like all of a sudden, it's not just they are blowing up things, but they're actually like really close, like an hour drive from Kiev. And that was a huge shock to all of us. And I think we were all just stunned. And I think that so were actually the Ukrainian army, I have to be honest. I think they were all in shock as well. That was not something that we believed to actually be happening. But I think right now, everyone just realized, okay, this is the situation as it is. So yes, we want them out of our country as soon as possible, but we take those news, well, I wouldn't say lightly, but I would say that it's just a matter of factly, it's like we don't get that scared anymore because we know that the Ukrainian army is able to fight back. Because the first 12 hours, like when you hear they are like 70 kilometers from Kiev, you realize like, okay, they can actually be in Kiev in 2 hours, but now we came to realize that Ukrainian army will not actually let them into the city. And that is important. Now we are absolutely confident they will not be able to enter into the city on tanks. They can try to shell the city, they're constantly trying to bombard it with the missiles, but they will not enter on tanks because they were only able to get closer to the city from north and northwest. That is the area where they were coming to. They didn't get closer from the northeast. And that is why that is important, because if you look at the map, you will realize that Kiev is actually located on the river. So there are 2 sides of Kiev, and even if they come on one side, they will not being able to come from the other side. It means that at least half of the city is they cannot easily encircle the city, which has the big river in the middle of it. So we came to realize this right now. Of course, within the 3 weeks that we from our first talk, the most terrible things happened in towns near Kiev, in Irpin and Bucha. That was just a massacre. I mean, seriously, what they were doing there. Again, it feels like so close to home. Like Irpin and Bucha are literally like 30 minutes drive from my home. And knowing that what they were doing there, it was just terrifying. There were so many people who lived in Irpin and Bucha and who were working in Kiev. There were so many people who were living in Irpin, and those were people who were displaced because of the war in Donbass. They came to Kiev. They couldn't afford the housing in Kiev. They bought housing in Irpin. I myself directly know 3 families like this. Like one of my best friends, she's from Donbass, and her parents moved from Donbass to Kiev because she and her brother were living in Kiev for a long time. They couldn't afford a house in Kiev. They bought a house in Irpin. And now it's their house, from what we know, is safe right now. But her dad, and I talked to her, and she said, my dad said that he will not go back to Irpin because it feels like a mass grave right now. Wow. Because that is what it is. It's like there are first of all literally mass graves. So they just dig a big hole and they bury people there. I didn't think I would live through that in the 21st century. In Europe. But there are mass graves.
Wow. Yeah. And then obviously we've been seeing reports too that, civilian centers have been hit as well. There's some that, depending on the intel you read, it's either they're targeting hospitals. There's apparently a theater that people are taking shelter in, where there's apparently 1,300 or so people in rubble right now that your forces are trying to get out of the rubble. And others are saying, well, it's because they have such antiquated weapons and rockets that they're not accurate, that they're afraid of the Stinger missiles that your troops are armed with, that are taking out the helicopters and the airplanes, and so they're firing from a distance indiscriminately, which means they're also hitting those things. But I think it also dovetails with some of the reports that we're seeing that Russians are apparently running out of supplies, that they don't have that much time. Their supply chains obviously are getting longer as they're moving further and further towards Kyiv. We're hearing reports of some Russian soldiers abandoning their posts, and apparently even a few have been caught shooting themselves, like in the foot or something, to get out of duty, because again, you're turning this into a massacre of Russian soldiers. Your defense forces are running spectacularly. So what are you officially hearing about those kinds of reports on the Russian supply chains and the morale of the Russian troops?
Yeah, that is true. That is what we are hearing here on the ground as well, is that well, first of all, Russians they were absolutely sure that they're here for a 1-week war. And that is what they were prepared with. And they are not very strong in building supply chain lines. I was actually looking through some reports, some Western intelligence reports about the state of the Russian army, like half a year ago. And they were saying like the weakest point of Russian army is actually supply chains. And that is one of the reasons why many people didn't believe that Russians will go into full-scale invasion, because their supply chains are so weak. So they apparently didn't expect this to be a full-scale war. So they were not ready for this in terms of supply chains. They were trying to build those, but Ukrainian army quickly realized that this is their weakest point. So they have been attacking those supply convoys from the north. You remember that 60 kilometers convoy that was supposedly coming from the north. To a large extent, partially dispersed, but also partially it was just destroyed by the Ukrainian forces. Which is great. And just about an hour ago, we read that as of right now, there is no more railway connection between Ukraine and Belarus. And they were using the railways as well for transporting some of the goods. And apparently that was some sort of operation so we heard it. I will quote what I heard from the railway officials. They said that there is no more railway connection between Ukraine and Belarus, and all the forces to Kyiv were coming from Belarus, not from Russia. And we want to thank for that to the Belarusian railway workers. So this is like, I just quote what I heard. You can free to comment on that yourself, but apparently many, like the majority of Belarusians do not want war with Ukraine. Like on a personal level, we are much friendly with them. But of course they have another crazy guy.
Lukashenko is their, right.
But regular Belarusians, there were many rumors and much intel was saying that Putin wants Belarusian soldiers to join the fight as well, but they actually haven't, because they don't want to. They were like massively, they were leaving the country, they were escaping. They didn't want to go to war against Ukrainians for two reasons. First of all, they like Ukrainians. We are between nations, we are on good terms. Second of all, because they are so poorly trained. And after seeing what Ukrainian army is doing to a better trained Russian army, it would have been just foolish to go, untrained into a massacre that Ukrainian army can create for them. But hitting the supply lines is important. Ukrainian army is much better at doing that. The Russian army is trying to, get some supplies. So they are in areas that are currently under their control. They are basically looting the houses. They are taking over the shops. They are just stealing everything from people. We have heard some reports from the villages in the northwest, which they taken over. People were saying they would just go into any house and will just take any food they want. We did hear reports about rapes by the Russian soldiers in those territories. And but they just, they are not regular army. They're just killers and dirtbags in the way how they behave. They just come, destroy everything. They take stuff. We did see reports of so there were some Russian vehicles which were blown up by Ukrainians, and then we could see what was in the vehicle. And apparently they have stolen stuff from the houses of the people. And we could see like a TV set, some other electronical devices which they just stole from the houses of the people, and they were planning to take them home to Russia. This is the kind of army we are talking about. They are completely crazy and just no ethical boundaries. But they are very poor in terms of supplies, and we hope that will help Ukrainian army. And one more thing. And I forgot what was that supposed to be. I probably will remember about that later. Again.
No.
Oh, the morale. Sorry, the morale.
Yeah.
Right. I was planning to say about the morale. It is very poor. So apart from several more professional battalions, the majority of the Russian soldiers are extremely demotivated. First of all, when they see how many casualties they are having, it's of course demotivating itself.
Right.
Russian army is still like in the Soviet times. We knew that from the Soviet time. The strength of the Soviet army was in numbers and in not caring how many people die. And it's still the case for the Russian army. And that is a huge difference with the Ukrainian army. Ukrainian army is planning operations to avoid casualties on our side. Russian army doesn't think about that. And there is this, it's already a legend here, but it's completely true. So on the south, near the city of Kherson, which is the biggest city that they have taken control of, there is an airport. It's called Chornobayevka. And they have been, it's so bad that it's actually ridiculous. They have been using this airport to refuel their helicopters. Ukrainian army set up their artillery so that it can actually reach that airport. So the Russian army lands their helicopters in that airport. Ukrainian army shells that airport. All their helicopters are destroyed. Okay, nice story. In a day, Russians do the same. So they clean up that airport and they land the helicopters on the very same spot. Ukrainian artillery shells this airport again, destroying all the other helicopters. Okay, you wouldn't believe it, but it literally happened 6 times. Like 6 times, they're sending people in helicopters to an airport, which they know Ukrainians will bombard, but they continue to send people there. You know, okay, we are grateful. Please continue doing that. That's great strategy. We love it very much. But it just, you know, when people see that, the Russian soldiers, well, guess how motivated they are in that sense.
Right. Well, and it underscores the difference between, you know, most militaries like Ukrainian. I know the US military is the same way, where the goal is to preserve life as much as possible while being effective in combat. And if your other goal is, well, we have so many troops, we're just going to keep throwing them at it and we'll eventually win, but it will take a huge loss of life. I mean, that's something that, you know, you would hope would have been abandoned in warfare by every country at this point. But, you know, here we are. And we've also seen reports that Russia is basically, they've called up troops or requested troops from Chechnya, Syria, you know, and some other places to bolster, you know, their defenses. And they've also been calling troops in apparently from Eastern Russia, you know, like Vladivostok, like very far away, because I think they, again, to your point, they just were not anticipating this. You know, and another thing I find interesting though is that, you know, Russia at this point, according to all reports, and you know, maybe you can tell me otherwise, but they've launched over 1,000 rockets or missiles against Kyiv. They've been destroying obviously infrastructure, trying to soften this up. I know you have been blowing up bridges and all of that so that they cannot get in, you know, to the city. You've been keeping them at a standstill, but they have kept the internet going. And intel suggests, you know, that the Russians are still trying to avoid knocking out the internet because they appear to be using it as well. But I think by virtue of that, they've been launching a rather intensive propaganda campaign, you know, against your people. That included just recently a deep fake of President Zelensky, you know, saying, you know, hey, Ukrainian people, surrender, give up arms to the Russians and all of that. This was a fake video that they put out. Now, my question is, especially as one of the leaders of your government, you know, how are you handling this? How do you think the public, you know, is receiving this, Ukrainian public is receiving this when they see these videos that look like President Zelensky saying, you know, give up to the Russians, I'm surrendering, you know, those kinds of things?
From the first day, the general statement, it doesn't work on Ukrainian people anymore. Like, if there were any doubts as to whether Ukraine is united or if there are like divisions inside the country, they have all they're not a case anymore since the first bombs blew up of our cities. Like, trust me, I was raised and born in Kharkiv. I didn't live there for over 20 years now. Yes, 20 years now. But still, I graduated from high school there. I still have many friends there. The majority of them are Russian speakers. Some of them were extremely friendly towards Russia. Some of those people are now signing up for the territorial defense units. Some of those people are going to the army, and they're texting me in Russian saying that, you know, when you talk to the people abroad, please let them know that Kharkiv is a Ukrainian city. Like, Ukraine has never been as united as it is right now. It's like not the way I wanted to unite the country, but well, that is the case right now. And we just heard today the statement by Lavrov, who said that the reason why they attacked Ukraine, just 3 days ago, he said that they didn't attack Ukraine, but okay, who cares? But he said that the reason he wanted to, they attacked Ukraine is to create, to stop the creation of the anti-Russian state here. Well, I'll tell you this, they failed dramatically. We have never been as anti-Russian as we are right now. like everybody is anti-Russian, absolutely everyone. Well, first of all, it's just a matter of common sense. I mean, when they're throwing bombs on you, you have very little sympathy for them.
Right.
Second of all, there has been a rather well developed and executed informational policy on the side of the state. So from the first day of war, the majority of TV channels have joined forces. So you switch TV channels, but you see the same picture. So like different hosts from different TV channels, they're doing TV programs together. They're all reporting the same news. So it's like everybody's watching the same. So we are all watching the same news, and we have access to the same information. There are no pro-Russian narratives or anything like that on Ukrainian television. And it's impossible to make it because, well, first of all, there are no more pro-Russian TV channels here. They have all been shut down. And second of all, again, there was like a single voice policy, which was literally implemented with the TV channels most of the time. There are a few hours when they do their own programming, but most of the time is the same picture on the same programs on all televisions. And also, I think Ukrainians very quickly learned, and there were many messages by the government saying that you only trust the official channels of communication. So you don't trust, like, someone told me this, like, because what the Russians were doing, like in Mariupol, which is of course the biggest pain right now, and it's like, it's terrible, it's genocide what he's doing there. But what they were trying to do in Mariupol, they were spreading information that if you are a civilian in Mariupol, you should wear a white badge, a white call it a strichka, like something tied on your,
like a band.
Like a band, yeah, like a band. And then we shall know you are a civilian and we shall not open fire on you. And that was actually a trap for people to get outside so that they can open fire on them. But I think the majority of people didn't believe that, because the people are so much used that you only trust the information that comes from your mayor or from your, city council or something like that. So I think people are very much used to this. I mean, there are still many rumors being spread, but like right now, everyone just says like, okay, do we have that confirmed on official websites or other channels of communication by the official authority? So Russian narratives have no place here, like 100%, that's for sure. And that deep fake video, first of all, it was as badly made as the Russian army. It's like,
it wasn't good.
Yeah, exactly.
I watched it.
It doesn't look like, it doesn't look real.
It's very stiff and just moves his head a little bit, but it's not.
Do you know that Putin, I think, was it a week ago, 10 days ago, something like that, he made there was a televised video of him meeting with some people, and apparently that was a deep fake as well. I don't know if you know that.
No,
because
I didn't hear that.
So apparently Putin is now just hiding in the bunker and he's afraid of meeting any real people. So they made a video where he's shown being in the room with other people. But then when they looked at the video very carefully, they could see that in some place he's like waving his hand behind the microphone. But you could, so there is the microphone and the hand should disappear, but it doesn't disappear. So it's like kind of covering the microphone. It's like, I'm not sure if I'm explaining it correctly, but it's like, it was obvious that it was a deep fake video. Like that is what they're doing right now.
Right. Well, and some people are saying, so apparently there was a huge rally in Moscow, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, where they had something like 70, 80,000 government employees there, all waving flags. And he was supposed to be out there in the center, and he was in the middle of his speech, and they suddenly cut off and just went somewhere else. And so, there's a lot of speculation on that as well. And to that point, it actually brings me up in terms of propaganda, because here in the United States, for example, we have an open media, so that we have commentators here that are openly either sympathetic or advocating for the Russian position, while the vast majority of America is against that. The vast majority of America is, with Ukraine. But we've also seen this changing narrative. I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because one of the initial thoughts of this changing propaganda narrative that Russia had was that, well, they're going to go into Ukraine because Ukraine is full of Nazis, so we're going to remove the Nazis from power. And then that really didn't fly here in the West. Like, nobody really believed that, Zelensky's Jewish. like, we
Exactly.
really didn't
Yeah.
believe it, and then they said, okay, well, now we're going on religious purposes because Ukraine has a gay community that is evil, and then that really didn't fly. And now the last thing we've heard is that, the United States and Ukraine have been jointly running a secret bioweapons laboratory, in Ukraine. And so the Russians had to go in to stop that due to biological warfare. And just, again, you're a member of parliament of Ukraine. You're in the leadership of that government. Can you speak to that last bit of propaganda? Because, I think it's been thoroughly debunked, but I'd love to hear it from Ukrainian leadership.
Yeah, first I will have a short comment on this video of yesterday's rally.
Please.
So we have seen some video which show that apparently at this specific moment, which was cut off when his speech was just cut off and interrupted, we have seen some other video which shows that apparently at that very moment, many people on the stadium started whistling. And that was like, with not being happy with what he was saying. And apparently that is why they interrupted his speech. That seems to be the case, which is great, which means that his power is shaken, which we hope all for. And I can tell you this, that once the news came through that video got interrupted, like every single person in Ukraine was thinking like, maybe they killed him, probably. Please, just. Yeah, we were also hopeful. But in terms of the laboratories, I will tell you even more because I'm not just a member of parliament. I did serve as the first deputy minister of education and science. So in terms of science and scientific research, I probably know more than the regular member of parliament in Ukraine. I can give you 100% assurances that we were not involved in that. I don't think there were any proof. But I will tell you for sure, like I was responsible for higher education and research in Ukraine for 2.5 years. I know a lot about what we are doing, where we do have capacity, where we don't have capacity, and we were definitely not involved in that. For partially, and that is a sad part of this, is because our science is so underfunded and it has so very little researchers that we simply didn't have the resources to do that, even if we wanted to. Like, I'm not saying we wanted to, but even if we did have many other areas where to invest money, which were extremely, science is so underfunded in Ukraine, it needs many more resources and so on and so forth. But we just didn't have the capacity to do so. Again, telling you as a person served as the, Minister of Education and Science in Ukraine. Right.
Well, so to my audience, you heard it here first. Here's the first Minister of Science of Ukraine saying that this is absolutely bunk. I think
first deputy minister, but that's
deputy minister. I apologize, deputy. Yeah, so it's something that we've seen, and it's this evolving propaganda, situation. But speaking of, I think, unfortunate science, I want to touch on another kind of terrifying subject for a moment, and that's the possibility here of some kind of nuclear war. Now, Russia has a strategy that they call escalate to de-escalate, or at least that's how we translate it here into English. And essentially what this strategy is it basically is deployed when things are going bad for Russia militarily. Now, essentially, the logic is that they would launch or detonate something like a 5-kiloton tactical nuclear weapon against an enemy, in this case, against Ukraine, possibly Kyiv, with the intention of just quickly changing the tide of the war and de-escalating. So you escalate with a small nuclear weapon, and then you watch the enemy de-escalate the conflict because they don't want to get nuked again. Now, is this something that you and the rest of your government are worried about, especially since this war is obviously going badly for the Russians, and they've also made thinly veiled threats? Putin has basically talked about this, that the destruction that the West has never seen before, which is a veiled threat to nuclear weapons. What do you think about that? Is this something that you're preparing for, and how do you prepare for that as a population?
So I think in terms of nuclear weapon, even Putin, in all his craziness, didn't use nuclear weapon once. And the very procedure to launch a nuclear weapon does include decisions by many people. And we do believe that on that chain of command, there will be people who will stop this from happening. And we did hear many suggestions on Putin's side that that put our potential nuclear weapon on high alert. But after that, he didn't mention nuclear weapon once. I think that is giving us hope. What we see as a bigger threat is chemical weapon. And all those talks about biochemical laboratories here and so on and so forth, that seems to be what they typically do is they could claim it as a false flag attack. They could use the chemical weapon against Ukrainians and claim that we did it ourselves because we are apparently Nazis. Just look at me, I'm a typical Nazi, and that is something that that we see as a much bigger threat than the nuclear option. That is scary, of course, but we again hope it won't come to that. Well, hope is pretty much all we are left with.
Right.
But in terms of weighing in what is more possible, we believe that chemical weapon is more possible. They have been using some of it, but to a smaller extent. They have been using cluster bombs. They have been using what are called the vacuum bombs in one town of Ohtyrka in the northeast of Ukraine. They're not using it right now, but we realize that yeah, it's part of the threat here. Yeah.
Right. Well, and obviously we've seen these are also why President Biden recently called Vladimir Putin a war criminal. I think right now the international courts of law are looking into war crimes against Russia for what they're doing to your people, which is it's just unconscionable. It's that we sitting here in 2022 are actually in this position. I mean, your people and you especially, it's unconscionable to the world, what you're going through right now. And so yesterday, I don't know if you heard about this, but Poland's ruling party leader, Jarosław Kaczynski, basically announced that he wants to propose a peacekeeping mission to Ukraine at the upcoming NATO summit. Can you tell me basically the position of your government, regarding that? Like, just talk about that.
Well, first of all, I have a dubious feelings about that.
Okay.
First of all, is that it would have been good if Poland, instead of coming up with these proposals right now, gave us those MiG jets that were almost, the deal was almost on. Right. That would have saved hundreds of lives here, literally, if they gave us those MiGs. But they started playing some game which was not very claiming to be a partner and then not being able to deliver the jets that we needed so urgently and so badly. That was not taken well here. Again, I don't mean to sound rude towards Poland. They are still taking in many of Ukrainian refugees, and we're grateful for that. But there would have been twice less refugees if we had the sky covered and if we got those jets. Right. So I think that jets is the primary issue. You can send as many peacekeepers here as you want, but if they will be bombarded from air like we are right now, that will do little good, if we are sending peacekeepers here, then they will only go under condition that the sky is covered, because nobody is suicidal. Nobody will just go into a country which is just bombarded from air every 2 or 3 hours. So I think that this is much more important right now. We can fight them on the ground. We are good with this, as the whole world learned. Again, we would appreciate the peacekeepers as well. I don't mean to sound that it's not, but for me, it seems like the Polish government is now trying to find some ways of saying, oh, we didn't give you the jets, but we have other ideas. That does feel a little bit like that to me, frankly speaking. Again, gotcha. We would take the peacekeepers. We take everything that is given to us, militarily speaking. Right. But number one priority is the sky. If we have the sky covered, then we are fine. Then we can deal with it even ourselves. But again, with peacekeepers, it's better. But without, it's no.
Right. Well, and that actually just kind of dovetails with the last question that I have with you. And thank you so much for your time today. I think this is just, you're doing an invaluable service to the world by just explaining this and telling my audience, essentially what you're seeing on the ground. But the last question that I basically have for you starts this way, in the sense that last time we spoke, one of those things, and I think it just dovetails with what you were talking about with Poland, is that you basically told my audience that you really wanted a no-fly zone, that Ukraine has been asking for a no-fly zone to be enforced. Obviously, the alternative might have been those Polish MiGs that you might have gotten. Obviously, neither one of those things has happened, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like those things are going to happen anytime soon. So is there anything else, that, again, you have an open floor, you can talk to my audience right now about anything that you want to say in that vein, or anything else you just want to tell my audience?
Well, first of all, we still need the jets. Like, if you are hearing this, call your congressman, talk to them, and tell him or her that we still need those jets. And everyone who is putting this banner, we stand with Ukraine, we pray for Ukraine, don't pray for us, give us the jets. That is so much better than anything else that can be done. We still need those jets. We still need that to save Mariupol. We still need that to save our infrastructure. It's still crucial to us, and I still think it can be done. Like, it still can be done. It's a pity it's taken so long. But other than that, many other things which we are slowly starting to get right now are the air defense system, like those C-300 systems from Slovakia, which Ukrainian soldiers, the Ukrainian army knows how to operate. They're giving that to us, and they're getting the American Patriots instead. So I believe that's a good deal for everyone. Like, it's good for everyone, and we appreciate it. Like, truly, as well as other weapon ammunition we are getting from the United States. Again, highly appreciative. I will tell you this: I was reading through a Telegram channel of one of the so-called leaders of officers of the leaders, like, of the Donetsk People's Republic. And he was, and I almost quote, he was saying that time is against us right now. By us, he means, well, the Donetsk People's Republic and Russia. Like, and time is against us because Ukrainians are getting more and more weapon every day, and we are not. And that is why we realized that unless Putin announces full-scale mobilization, which he didn't, he's just throwing in a few battalions here or more, but not full-scale mobilization. This is the statement, but that's like general or whatever he's called. Then we're going to lose. So they're keeping track of the weapon that we are receiving. Of course, they don't know about everything we are receiving, but that is appreciated, like, truly. With the jets, again, it's a separate story. We still need them and would be highly appreciative, but that's good. We are going to need that. But so any weapon, again, is appreciated. And then the bigger thing right now is that, and that is not about the war itself, but let's imagine that the best case scenario, we are done with this war within a month. We shall need so much money to restore economically. It's like look at Mariupol. The city basically doesn't exist anymore. I don't, frankly speaking, think it can function as a city after that. But Kharkiv, we can rebuild Kharkiv, but for that we shall need like billions. Our agricultural sector, which is so crucial to the global economy, not just to us, but it's still like we are number 1 or 2 in several positions on the global agricultural market. We shall need support in terms of rebuilding that, and that would be good not just for us but the whole world, because now if we do not, if we do not plant the grains within a month, the whole world is in trouble, and the UN Secretary General is already speaking about that. So even if we win the war, we shall still need lots of support from the West. So please remember about that now, so that once the war is won, and once we have peace here, it doesn't mean that it's over. It's just the beginning of rebuilding of a new country here in Ukraine.
Right, and I think that's such an important message for my audience, and anybody that eventually listens to this or watches this. So, Inna Sovsun, thank you so very much, Member of Parliament of Ukraine and the first Deputy Minister of Science and Education, or Education and Science in
Education
Ukraine.
and Science.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me again. Thank you.
Thank you.